Sanjay C sent us this sample, and we had to flip it. First off, thank you so much to Sanjay C and prodbycece for putting this on. Appreciate you both. My name is Robbie Sco. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, performer, and producer, teaching online keyboard, guitar, bass, drums, and music production lessons. I also have a YouTube channel. Thank you, Sanjay, for shouting it out in the past. Appreciate that. I enjoy using also some of these fancy OBS scenes or different live streaming tech I've set up. And as the gig started winding down, I started teaching some fellow musicians how to get things like this set up for their streams, things like that. So, been enjoying that. Before all this, I played keyboards in upwards of 10 bands, but now I have more time to dive deeper into Ableton and sling a bunch of instruments together into some fun productions. So let's dive into this one. All right, so I first started using it pretty blatantly, just kind of taking some of the chords, chopping them up manually and labeling what the chords were and putting them into a drum rack, right? So in this drum rack, you see here, I've got like the chords labeled A minor 7, F6, 9, J9, etc. And I think there's a few that I kind of pitch shifted around a little bit. Like for example, there was a D minor 11, but then I kind of doubled it and then pitched it up a whole step. So I got to have an E minor 11. And yeah, I started off just pretty blatantly just using that sample at the top. And I also used it to create the chord progression for the first section, which sounds like this. That synth lead sound. It's actually mainly coming from the sample he gave. So I put that into a sampler, made sure it was monophonic and changed the glide time so we can get that back and forth. Really small zone and looped it. So I get this kind of metallic type sound. Yeah, I'll read from his chord sample. I added to that also, and this is kind of interesting, I added his Sanjay Rhodes, which is a great plugin that he just made, but I got it to sound like this. And the way I did that, click on the wrench icon, go to settings, go down here and kind of adjusted the envelopes a lot, right? So I brought the attack up, adjusted the decay, sustain, so that instead of sounding like a Rhodes, it sounds like this, almost like a flute type quality. So it gives a little bit of like a breath to the synth, which is nice. So those two combined, the Sanjay sample and the Sanjay Rhodes that I tweaked, sound like this. And what's fun about this is once you get into the higher register, some of the notes start to get really warped and get just like all kinds of distorted. You'll hear it. Right? Because it's just looping, so when it gets so high, it just kind of goes off the rails. So there's one point where I do like a rise up to this high note C, and C starts to have some of those extra notes in there, right? So it's like a right, so you're starting to get that distortion there, right? Whereas like a C just the octave below sounds kind of more tame, just like that tiny blue. And then yeah, just think it up just a little bit more. Added a square wave from Serum, and sounds like this. Nice. And this square wave, I think this is tweaked by Virtual Riot. I think it's like a Virtual Riot lead, which is fantastic. He's got some great presets. But anyway, even without that square wave, it sounds great just with the Sanjay samples. Yeah, but so with the Sanjay, as you'd imagine, I also had to go in and make sure that the Rhodes was monophonic, and I couldn't get the Sanjay Rhodes to do the glide. If someone knows how to do that, let me know. It's a little contact tweaks, but I was able to get it so it's monophonic, right? So even just I solo the Rhodes and I play different notes at the same time. You're only hearing one, but it's not going to glide back and forth like the sampler would. Yeah, and again, I did that by going into, you adjust the modulation, MIDI, all that good stuff. Make sure the pitch bend range was 2 semitones. That worked out nice. Made this, and then started with a call and response with the guitar and this Sanjay lead that we made for the verse. Also did use the Sanjay Rhodes as he actually designed it, which is awesome. So I used the Chorus Pro. And I was kind of doubling up some of the sounds that he had made. Some of the chord progressions that I had picked from my kind of like drum sampler that kind of gets that in there. And that sounds like this. So that's his sample, his Rhodes, and his sample turned into a synth. and then out of that drums and bass.
Cool, we got a bass tone.
Got my buddy Gabriie Gonzales to play lead guitar, Lucas Perez to play alto saxophone and iwi, and I actually posted a story on my Instagram, and my buddy Alex saw it and said, hey man, if you need drums, let me know. So I set up the file, and he recorded drums that night. So thank you, Alex, and got loaded up with these multi-track drums. Thank you, sir. Sounds like this. Very nice. That was a nice challenge, kind of working with all the different tracks there. We got overhead, snare, toms, kick, all that good stuff. Yeah, let's now kind of dive into what was the main inspiration for the bridge here. So the bridge here, it came from warping this sample, setting it to transients mode or beats mode, and bringing the transients way down to get these kind of percussive type ticks. And when I took the sample, I think I warped it instead of being whole note chords, half note chords. So I brought it to I warped it so it lines up within beat 3. And just by doing that and taking this warp mode transients, bringing this all the way down, I got this kind of swing to it. All right, yeah, so I really like that swing already, how it was. So that was like the foundation for the next section. And I just kind of transposed this up and down to fit different things and some different ways I EQ'd that. And got, compressor, guitar amp. The guitar amp I'm mainly using for a lot of instruments on here is actually the archetype Corey Wong guitar amp, which is really cool. Really enjoy that. And then I got this one knob pumper just to give it that pumping action, right? Because without that, yeah, so we add that back in. Yeah, I also have this auto filter kind of moving it a little bit, right? Because this is the rate of the LFO is that set to quarter notes, so we got that little bump there as well. After we start with a little bit of that, we go to some guitar and that synth, that same Sanjay synth, back and forth. That really set the stage for the new section. Once we got that new groove with the shuffle in there. And there's also one great tweak that I made to the Sanjay Rhodes that I want to use in a different song. Right here, I'm just using it in a transition, but I really like the patch that's from it. And I use it just here, but it's the Sanjay Rhodes plus an echo, like this backdoor echo preset with some one knob pumper to give it that motion. And that just sounds really cool. So even just that key sound by itself has a lot of motion with the one knob pumper, and I like the delay, so that's fun. I'll mess with that more. But yeah, right now I just use it here, and you hear that in context. That's like... yeah, that kind of helps us go from here to here. And then we've got trade back and forth with the guitar, horn doing the melody lines. And then we've also got the synth, the Sanjay synth coming back in. And the last section is really driven by that same Sanjay synth line doing this this kind of a riff. So that kind of line is going out through in there, and then different instruments do unison with that. But what's really cool and kind of glues all that together is this organ sound. And I had a really hard time getting this organ sound to come through with this pad that he sent. I tried a number of different things. One thing I tried, we got this failed organ sampler here. One thing I tried was just kind of looping a certain region that I thought might work, but there's so much harmonic information within that I couldn't get different tone, like a major and a minor. It's all going to be right. So even if I played a chord with that, it's going to be a total mess. So that was no good. What I ended up doing was taking like a similar looped section like I did for the lead, and I went in and added again distortion of the week. You got the archetype Corey Wong, and then some EQ, and sometimes would go ahead and add in some try to grab some different harmonics. And the funny thing is, I got something that kind of worked, But whenever I played two notes, it would just get totally washed out. So here's one note, two notes. So when I add multiple notes, it's kind of like this crazy like low white noise all over it, right? So, but I was able to get it to work by tripling up on this instrument. So I just tripled up on this sound, and I had each different one here, play a different note of the chord, and that ended up working out okay. So that ended up sounded like this. Which kind of works out. And if I try to play a similar thing on just a single patch, that would be kind of a mess. Right? But then you separate it all out. Ableton lets it happen. Yeah, you see some clipping from my CPU freaking out. That's all right. So that was able to kind of glue everything together at the end. For the higher energy section, nice sax. At the very end, I bring back the sample again for this nice hit, just kind of like the last little hit. And just did a little bit of a sweep here. Yeah, and that brings it in. So I had a lot of fun working with this sample. Thank you, and thanks for listening. Take care.
As far as the challenge is concerned, it's nerve-wracking, but that's the stuff that's the most rewarding. I don't want to just keep putting out stuff that I know how to do. I want to challenge myself. And that helps me challenge my viewers as well. They learn something new.